Whether it's a priest like Moses Cody thinking about the structure of the economy, or Catherine Donnelly thinking about how we welcome one another, how we live together, how we build a future for that next generation. These things sit there below the surface of the life of the church in Canada. And if we don't look for the sources that made us who we are, we're going to lose not just our identity, but a sense of direction too.
Catherine Donnelly's religious calling came in 1918 in the midst of a global pandemic where she encountered great need and believed that God was calling her to respond. This led to the founding of the Sisters of Service in 1922. Reflecting on this history makes me wonder if there are people today like Catherine who are as attentive and listening for a call like hers.
That charism that Catherine Donnelly received from God was also the charism of every SOS that came and stayed. From the beginning to the present, God's love to this small group of ordinary women, their response to God's love, and the spirit, the charism of the SOS will continue through the seeds that we have planted along the way.
Stations of the Cosmos. Thomas Berry, Passionist priest and cultural historian, argues that our culture needs a new story to guide it into a less destructive ecological age. Such a story would integrate the scientific account of the emergence. As I've entered more deeply into eco-spirituality, it's just opened up for me a whole other way of understanding service. The nature of all of creation is to be part of the web of life, living in an interconnectedness, all contributing to the life and good of others. So there's this ongoing cycle of service to each other. That's just built in to creation. And this is God's vision of the earth and the universe community of service and love. And that's who God is, this giver, so that there can be love in return, service, and it goes back and forth and around through everything in creation. And that's really that interweaving of love and service that we reflect then as Sisters of Service.
Having rediscovered Catherine and her foundational charism, the sisters better understood their own personal versions of charism. Not only how they themselves were living it, but also they began to see that the charism was not only theirs, but a spirit of the times. Catherine's era, and 50 years later, the spirit behind the ministries of the present SOS generation, and perhaps, they hoped, a spirit for all times, especially for those who wish to serve, to be part of mending a broken world.
Hello. It is an honor to be with you as we, Sisters of Service, go about our task of getting in touch with all the key people who've been a part of our journey.
When we look at the role of the sisters in the Center for Religious Education and Catechesis, we were so aware of how they came to us with their attentive listening, their deep interest in our projects, and their ongoing interest in the research and what developed from it.
In 1925, and at the request of diocesan bishops, eventually across the country, the sisters began their half-century of religious education ministry, both parish-based and through correspondence teaching for children growing up in the hinterlands of pioneer Canada. The SOS approach to catechetical learning would develop through discerning their students' spiritual starting points and real-life situations. And this evolving approach continues today through their endowment of St. Paul University's Center for Religious Education and Catechesis.
And we warmly congratulate the Sisters of Service. We congratulate you and are so grateful for your ongoing work with us at the center.
I would like to congratulate the Sister of Service on their 100 years, because they have been walking and learning and discerning how they can continue helping and supporting vulnerable women in the future, but also they have been discerning and learning from us, I as a former refugee, and they are seeing how we are when we are in a safe place, how we can be ourselves. That's why the Sister of Service gave the endowment to the Canadian Council for Refugees.
In 1923, and over the next 70 years, the Sisters of Service opened up residences for single women, including refugees from all over the world, as well as young women migrating from Canadian farmlands to the big cities.
All these residences drew young women who were away from home. And because we listened to them, because we gave them a place, a safe place to be, and I think it meant an awful lot in the lives of the women that were there. We lived with the residents. They saw us morning, noon, and night. It was a way of being in the church, and I think it was a gift to the church of the time, and a way of presence to what was happening in our country.
The Halifax Women's Residence is memorialized in Canadian immigration history for its decades of welcoming refugee newcomers coming into Canada through Halifax's Pier 21. The SOS support of refugee women and families continues with the SOS endowment of the Canadian Council for Refugees, with a special emphasis on the settlement needs of women refugees.
We need to continue the legacy of the Sister of Service, learning for refugees who just arrived, but also a new learning how I can advocate through the Canadian Council for Refugees to keep the door open for more refugees and protect more women.
We are all called to love and serve everyone. So that part of the Sisters of Service, their charism to serve everyone in the community, is also what we are learning to do as leaders.
In 2012, the Sisters of Service initiated and endowed the Catholic Women's Leadership Foundation. In partnership with the Catholic Women's League of Canada, the foundation is providing Catholic women leaders with academic training to support their upcoming leadership roles within the Church.
The application for the CWLF program requires that you are Catholic. That being said, it is understood that your leadership role is within the community for everyone, to not be judgmental, to just be there present for everyone.
I came into the Catherine Donnelly Foundation at the point that it was already in motion. And the Sisters of Service were out of sort of the normal tradition even at that time. And throughout all of their history, they weren't really institutionally oriented. They were oriented externally.
It is a real pleasure and privilege to be here with you today and to celebrate 100 years of service of the Sisters of Service, and how prescient it was for you to focus on things like the environment and housing at the foundation, at the start of CDF, given the incredible need for funding and support and change in those places.
The Catherine Donnelly Foundation, the jewel of the SOS legacy to church and country, was founded in 2003 after years of processing amongst the sisters themselves. Once launched, the sisters served on the CDF board, first as its chairperson and then as members until 2019. They brought in experts when they needed them, not only analyzing where and what needs were the greatest, but also setting out criteria of excellence for a new foundation in a new era that would still resonate with the spirit of Sisters of Service foundress, Catherine Donnelly.
We always imagined that the CDF would go on for generations and be the primary expression of what Catherine herself and her successors set out to do.
Just to get to the point of founding the CDF, we spent years sitting in what we call circle governance to arrive at a concept which would represent all the Sisters of Service, both those in the moment, but also those who had gone before, and just including all of our experiences, all of our insights.
There would be 3 focus areas of activity for CDF: adult education, housing, the environment. Underlying all of the Foundation's financial undertakings was the premise of ethical investment, investing in people and enterprises which share the values of the Sisters and the Foundation. All of this is based on the history of lived experiences of the Sisters as they ministered to the country's most marginalized over 100 years. The SOS idea of helping to build a more just and equitable Canada can continue.
If you look at Idle No More, Black Lives Matter, the Youth Climate Strike Movement, Universal Basic Income. In order to affect real change in any one of these spheres, we need to look at root causes, and that's really what our funding priorities get at, is the root causes, the systemic issues.
The courage with which the Sisters of Service tackled the problems of their day, and they're leaving a legacy to allow others to tackle the challenges of today, is their recognition that the world is changing and that let's try and find another way of impacting on the world.
Life is mystery. Life is full of mystery. So we can look at this little group of women who are healthy enough and who are living today. How are we the ones who are here at this time to celebrate 100 years? It's mystery.
Today, we gather at Mount Hope Cemetery to honor our deceased Sisters of Service. As we celebrate the annual memorial service, we remember and give thanks for their dedicated service and gifted leadership. As we begin, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
May the breath of creation that surrounds their graves in trees, grass, and earth, birds and sun, join us in prayer. May we be reminded of what we already know, that nothing dies, rather life is only transformed into new life.
celebrate on this joy-filled day. Life so fragile, life so free, life that's lived abundantly, and life...
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I have worked with the sisters for quite a long time, so I think I can speak confidently for the sisters in, first of all, welcoming each and every one of you here.
My spirit name is Wild Rose, given to me by my grandmother. I'm a member of the Crane clan. I come from a small reserve, Northern Ontario, on the north shore of Manitoulin Island, called Birch Island. I am extremely honored to be here. I must tell you that I was with the Catherine Donnelly Foundation for a number of years, moved up the ranks from newbie to being on the executive, and it was the most fun and the most rewarding volunteer work I think I've ever done. We say miigwech, miigwech, chimiigwech. Thank you very much. It's been a journey of 100 years, and it's just halfway through for sure.
There had never been a religious community like yours in Canada. It was, to our Toronto sisters' eyes in 1922, untraditional. But it would seem to me that over the course of many decades and after Vatican II, this experiment was no longer an experiment. It had instead become the common reality for most women religious, as we heard God's call to be closer to people and their communities, to live among them, and to know and serve them better. And that's exactly what the Sisters of Service had been doing. Thank you for your vision and asking us to be your sponsors. And congratulations on your centennial celebration.
What do we celebrate on this joy-filled day? Hope's what we celebrate on this joy-filled day.
As a child, I eagerly looked forward to the letters that Aunt Agnes Bruning wrote from Vilna and Edson in Alberta, describing the life of the sisters in those mission hospitals and the work they did, sometimes in very difficult days. I bring much admiration and appreciation for the years of dedicated and very down-to-earth service this community has given to so many.
I think the only way we do service to the Sisters of Service is by taking that model and applying it in our own lives. Congratulations and thank you to the Sisters of Service for a job well done. Cheers.
For the past, we have nothing but gratitude. In the present, we rejoice in the fact that you were able to join us this evening. And for the future, we leave a legacy of hope in the immense possibilities of life and of service with love, which we can expand right across Canada and around the world.
Love's what we celebrate on this joy-filled day.